Hey everybody, we're going to do something a little bit different today. I had to mute the audio on last night's Twitch broadcast because of some song requests that we had playing. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to voice over and provide a little commentary after the fact for this Sub-30 Golem Magicite run. Right off the bat, with team composition, we have Ferris, who is just here as an Entruster, and you can already see the Thunderlord status, or Thunder God status that's on her. And that will provide her to entrust better, and I'll explain why in a second. Onion Knight, he is essentially here, and he's great in this fight. He really shines in two of the fights, and that would be Sea Lion and Golem, because Onion Knight has 5-star Ninja, so he can use those Ninja magic abilities, which are so powerful versus Magicite bosses, because they're exaggerated defense and resistance, which Ninja magic does not obey. Next up, we have Aphmau, who is incredible, and I didn't realize how good she was until I saw what she did for me in Magicite runs where I was using mages. In this fight, I happen to be using 3 mages. So as long as I can competently heal the group with her reduced healing, compared to someone like Ishtola or, Vanille, then I've achieved a huge benefit, and that's why I was able to accomplish here, and that's why she's here. The Magic in Mind plus 30% buff is really potent here. Next up, we have Fusion, which is pretty much the star of the fight, because she gets entrusted so much by Ferris. Fusion, honestly, is more defined at the currently defined by her Super Soul Break rather than her Burst. Her Burst is just there to give me something to do for turns, because it gives me, commands that I can use. Because she's carrying Stitch in Time and Wrath. So there will be turns that I want to fill up with her doing actual damage when she has the end win status from her super. So having both is good, but it's more about the super. I think you can run this team with her and her Super Soul Break and Burst Soul Break, or her Super Soul Break and OSB, and I don't doubt that you could probably run her with just her Super Soul Break. Getting entrusted and using Raging Storm, the 5-star Ninja Wind ability instead. And then there's Alphino at the bottom. He's plugging a hole. He does get entrusted once just to get into his BSB, and from that point on, he's self-sufficient. One of the great things about Alphino's BSB is that it does a hell of a lot of damage over, sustained damage, because he gets the Instacast proc every time he uses his Command 1. So once he gets that going, doesn't need any more, capitalize other than that command. We entrust Fusion here because she doesn't have as good of a command that he does. It's stronger, but it doesn't have the Instacast, and honestly, it makes a world of difference. So, going back to the Thunder God status that we have on Ferris, there's a couple ways you can go about running an Entruster, and I'm using Thunder God status here because if you think about it, say you run a Striker on your Entruster. So you Wrath first turn, and then you Entrust second turn. That's 270 Soul Break points. That's more than half of your bar. So that person on their third turn, theoretically, can then use their Soul Break. What I'm aiming for here is, instead of entrusting over 270 Soul Break points from an Ace Striker Entrust, I want to entrust less. Because the less that I can entrust to Alphino, that's my first entrust, the better, because that gives me the rest of the fight to go strictly for Fusion. The reason why I ran Thunder God here instead of a Striker is because I want that first entrust to be smaller, and that's what we get from this. So I'm going to start up the fight. First turn is going to be Ferris, and she's going to Wrath. Second turn will be Onion Knight, and he's going to, BSB. And third will be Aphmau, and she will use Wall. Because what's great about Golem is he uses his first turn to give himself Protect, which is basically a dead turn because I don't use any physical attacks against the boss. So that allows us to use Wall on first turn, even with its delayed cast, and still not worry about being protected. Fujin is just going to Wrath, and Alphino is going to use Protectka. Oh, Meltdown. Yeah, sorry, this did happen last night, and I was kind of in the zone. So I'm just meltdowning with Alphino here. For the same reason that we can wall on first turn, I don't care about getting our defenses up immediately. So Alphino gets a little extra damage, and I believe I've offloaded Protectka and Shulka duties to... just Shulga to Onion Knight. So he's going to BSB. Yeah, this is important to note here because, you know, you're using Magicite. If you use a BSB and then the regular ability, that should open up the person to be able to use a Magicite as soon as their third turn hits. And that's what we're going to do here. $7,500 damage is better than nothing. And see, because we're using Thunder God, Ferris's ATB is almost about to come up, and she's immediately going to entrust Alphino. I do a lot of pausing because I like to explain and think. And because I like to explain to the stream, that reduces the amount of time I get to think during a game, so I need the extra time. And we get another Wrath off here with Fujin, and another Meltdown. And shall go with Onion Knight. Oh, and we do a Protectka. Okay, so Protectka's on Aphmau. I wait to use the BSB until third turn. Risky strats, but you gotta play risky for Sub-30. All that Earth Resist, very useful. Another Wrath, and now we just start Raging Storming with Onion Knight until the end. And now what we're trying to do is entrust two Thunder God Wraths to Fujin now. And this will allow Alphino and Fujin to both start using their Soul Break cycles after the Aphmau BSB goes off. So now they've gotten benefit from both the magic buff from Onion Knight and the magic buff from Aphmau. And Fujin uses Stitch in Time first. Because all of Fujin gets 3 turns of just strict instant cast. She gets to do a lot within a limited amount of time. More Raging Storming from Onion Knight here. And we haven't received a lot of damage, so I'm allowed to use Aphmau's Command 1. This will give us a little extra damage over the course of the fight. When Aphmau uses her Command 2, she'll do a little non-elemental damage. Everything is something. It looks like I decided to use the Magicite on Ferris. That's right, because Ferris, on my normal entrusting cycle, was getting a dead action at the end of the fight. So I moved entrusting over to her instead, which is nice because she Thunder Gods it out, so ×3 cast speed. And this allows Onion Knight to use all of his Raging Storm charges by the end of the fight, which is absolutely ideal because that's a huge damage dealer in this fight. I use Unicorn here because I like the status blink over the physical blink. I'm less concerned about the damage and more concerned about the interrupt. So the difference between using Unicorn and Fenrir here is Fenrir will automatically block the ability that causes you to be interrupted. But I don't really want to block it. I just want to block the interrupt. And the interrupt isn't guaranteed to happen. So why I like Unicorn here is if the first time he uses the ability that causes the interrupt to the party, and say only 2 people get hit with it, and those get removed with the Astra from Unicorn, that leaves that benefit still active for 3 other people. And that is not a benefit that you see with Fenrir, because Fenrir will block the attack completely. So if he decides to use the ability again, which he most likely will, then at least you have more protection than you would have otherwise. Come on, what are you pausing for? I don't need to pause. Oh man, I'm explaining something. Go. One more Raging Storm. And now we use the 3rd instacast ability with Fusion, which was Stitch in Time, then her Super Soul Break for End Wind, and now her Burst, which is boosted in damage for a cool about 40,000. A little less than 40,000. And Alphino's down there just instacasting away. More Savage Earthshaker. Ooh, we even had a double proc stun on Alphino. A lot of damage, too. He must go light from this turn on. So now we're running the Entrust and Fusion thing. What you do with Fusion is, because her Burst Soul Break is area of effect and her Super Soul Break is single target, you just keep recasting the Super because it does more damage. Otherwise, if you're not unable to use her Super because you haven't been entrusted or you haven't generated a gauge by yourself, then just use the Command 1. That was what we used the Burst Soul Break for in the first place. And you'll see later on in the fight, it's a very good thing that we did. And I don't know if anyone's noticed this before, but I'm using the auto attack strategy. Well, it's not a strategy, it's just a little tip that if you have a Command 1 on your burst that you want to cast, you just hit auto attack and it'll automatically select your Command 1 without any input delay. So it's a big deal later on in this fight. I'm just pointing out now. You'll see Fusion automatically start to use her Command 1, and I turned off auto as soon as Aphmau's ATB was about to come up, because I don't want her to use Command 1, I want her to use Command 2. More Raging Storm from Onion Knight. And we get off, I believe, our last Entrust onto Fusion. Right, because this is enough bars to give her the ability to Super Soul Break 2 more times. And then perhaps one last turn of Command 1 from her burst. Little super. So this is good damage. Instant 18,000 a turn is it's pretty nice coming out from Alphino. Now I'm in crunch time. I know this is a good run, and I'm just trying to make sure that every single action that I take from this point on is the proper one. I wish I knew what I was thinking about right now. Oh, we're trying to figure out what to do with Ferris, since there's we're at 26 seconds on the clock. There's very little I can do with Ferris at this point. So there's nothing I can do with Ferris from this point. She no longer has Thunder God, so she's not going to be able to entrust or Wrath and then entrust before the end of the fight. So there's 2 things I could do here: auto attack or entrust the soul break gauge that I do have, the like 60 points to somebody, which I actually should have done, and you'll see that in a second. And we got another super off with Fusion. I see chat saying right now that attack for the auto, which wouldn't actually do anything because he has a physical shield on, or defend. I don't actually like defend because it takes less time, so it's going to cause her ATB to come up, and I didn't want that. Because when someone's ATB comes up, perhaps they interfere with somebody else's and, make me lose a precious, fraction of a second. So you'll notice when Alphino's ATB comes up here, that's bad. Had I entrusted with Ferris that little bit of soul break gauge that she had, Alphino, for his last action, would have been able to recast his BSB inside burst mode with N-Wind, and it would have easily sub-30'd this fight. What I had to do instead, you'll see, is since Meltdown is a stronger multiplier than Windblade, I use Meltdown instead. Windblade would allow just... The strength of Windblade is Command 1 is the Instacast proc, which means nothing when you're at 28.26 seconds. So Meltdown had to be my finisher instead of his BSB. Boo-hoo. Probably would have simply ended the fight. So here I am wondering, does that 30 damage we just got from Alphino and a Raging Storm from Onion Knight actually get me there? It doesn't. And here is something I said earlier in the run about the auto command trick, is that had I decided to click, you see Fusion's ATB right now is going to come up with enough time for her to use her Command 1. But if I had clicked it, or, tapped it, whatever, the input delay may have cost me the fight, and you'll see that. So what I did instead is I used the auto trick, which removed all input delay and immediately started up her Command 1. You see that look on my face right now? That's me realizing that her Command 1 has a 0.83 cast time, and we got it off with more than 0.83 seconds left in the fight. See, 29.83 left in the fight when she uses her command. Input delay would probably have pushed that over 30 seconds. In a 30 second or a sub 30 second clear, every scrap of time that you can gain is really important, and it really shows here, because that 16,000 was the end. And that was my first 30-second clear of Golem. Thanks for listening. It's been kind of interesting doing this. Never done it before. We'll see if I do it again in the future. It's kind of nice to explain things, in hindsight. Have a good night.